Employees at the motel in Mexico started getting complaints about the smell coming from the area where free water tanks were located. Once the police was notified and the stench was found out to be coming from the motel's water supply, on the 21st of April 2022, a body was removed from the water, but the victim was unrecognizable. She was wearing the same clothing and a cross on her neck as the 18-year-old Debanhi Escobar wore the night she went missing, with the stats making her the 20th woman to be reported missing in the previous 4 weeks, and the police claiming she fell into the tank and accidentally drowned at first. The case will take over Mexico, highlighting the deep-rooted cause that country has with femicide. This is the story of Debanhi Escobar. The rage, Detective Squad, the rage that you're about to feel in the next couple of minutes, because here really we don't have anything on Debanhi in terms of the background. We just have the events of the night. This case has been playing up with my brain. I receive a couple of medium newsletters. Basically, I subscribe to quite a few true crime writers, just looking, for the next video, for the next topic, and this is how I heard of this case. And again, all of the headlines were kind of flashy, sensationalized, body found in a water tank. It resembles Elisa Lam's case, Cecil Hotel. That was the appeal to the public. But when you actually dig under the surface, there's something really off when it comes to this case, and I really want to know your theories. I really wanted to speak about it because I can speak some Spanish, I can understand it, so I found quite a few videos and interviews done by the parents and stuff, and everything is really in Spanish because the case is Mexican. So I was like, I might as well try to translate it for the people and obviously then gauge your opinions, because a lot of things can get lost in translation. And even here, when we kind of listen to the messages, everything will make sense in a bit. As we go along with this story, you're gonna see exactly what I mean. Certain things you're kind of is it just getting lost in the translation because of the language, or are some parties more culpable than the others? My main goal when covering these topics, whether it is the Polish cases, whether it is a Dutch case, whether it is American ones, when the case has been unsolved, and especially when they're still current, is always to do a deep dive, to dig under the surface, to try to translate as many documents and interviews as possible, but also to expose it to the people in that country, to the people of Mexico who understand the laws better, who understand the government better, for them then to make themselves known in the comments below and tell us what can really be done here. Are there any petitions that maybe people abroad aren't aware of? Can we send any emails to somebody? Then there can be a template to really put pressure on people to get this case solved, to get Debanhi the justice that she truly deserves. So now let us dive into the story, because you're about to feel the same amount of rage that I have been feeling the whole week. Just the whole week. So today we're talking about Debanhi Susana Escobar. And she was from Nuevo León. She was studying law there at the university, and her dad would describe her as somebody who always wanted to help people. In any sort of situation, people could always turn to Debanhi. On the night of 8th of April 2022, so just about a month ago, Debanhi will join 2 of her friends for a house party at first, and then that will continue throughout the night to move on to a bunch of different parties. Here, I just want to, even before starting this saga, to say that friends is how these 2 individuals have been referred to in the press, in the articles, and that I am going to use that term in the loosest way possible. These 2 girls were not Debanhi's friends. And I will let you know in a minute what I mean by that, but God bless, find yourselves better friends than this. The 2 individuals that were considered her friends were named Sarai and Yvonne. Their last names, from what I have seen, are protected. So Sarai and Debanhi knew each other for about 3 months, and then Yvonne would only come into the picture that night. She was just basically being brought by Sarai for some sort of pre-drinking before they were to go out for a party. This has been confirmed by Debanhi's dad, who saw them that night because they first gathered at Debanhi's house around 11 p.m. Then the three girls would take a cab that would bring them to this shop where we have the CCTV footage of them buying a vodka. I have watched a video on this case by this American YouTuber who said, and I haven't seen this anywhere else, so I just wanted to mention it, that the bottle that they have bought had about 16 shots in it. So, split between the three of them, that would be 5 shots each. What we don't have in this story, and you know how much I like calling things out when I see a gap, is Debanhi's tolerance to alcohol. I don't see that anybody has done an interview. Again, this would be something really useful, as the story will later show, to know. So if anybody actually knows, if any witness interviews have yielded this kind of information, let me know. Was she lightweight? Would she get drunk easily? Was she used to drinking spirits? Because again, it's a completely different thing when you're drinking beer compared to spirits, compared to just drinking shots of vodka. Another thing that I would like to know, and I kind of hope this investigation leads us to, is whether this was another common thing for Debanhi to do. Was she known to go out with her friends, to pre-drink? Because at first, when I heard of buying of the vodka and have seen that video, my mind immediately went to botellón, which is when you go out into usually city center or wherever, like with your friends, and drink sort of on the streets, and can be followed by an actual party, and sometimes it doesn't. But here they would just go to a different location, and it seems like at first there wasn't really much of a plan. Nobody really mentions that, but I don't know, it just struck me as odd because there's so many sort of gaps in this story, and for me that is one of them. Because after buying that vodka, it seems like they will return to the same place. So from that, I gather this would have been Debanhi's home. They would buy alcohol and play some games, probably drinking games. We don't really have any insight on that. And after that, Debanhi and her 2 friends moved to another party. Now here, it seemed like nobody let them in. Again, no further information on that. It just says nobody let them into this place, whether it was a club or not. Did they have to book possibly to actually enter the place and buy any tickets for the party? But this is when they decide to order a cab. And they decide to order a cab through an application called Didi. So every single video that I have watched on this case says that Didi is equal to Uber. I don't know, to me it didn't really look equal to Uber, and in terms of the size of the company, again, you can't really compare it to Uber. But what I want to know from people, especially if there are any Mexicans watching this, is it safe? Is this the go-to application? Because what will happen is you can see a car coming at around 12:50 at night, so 12:50 the next morning, 9th of April, and the guy called Juan David is driving the car. So everything is done properly here, as in the cab has been ordered through the app, and it's a white Kia car that is coming to pick these girls up. You can see the girls getting out of the cab between 1:20 and 1:30 a.m. And at this location, called Quinta El Diamante, it was also said that they had to ask for permission to enter. And that is because they didn't know anybody. So again, I'm not sure if that means that they just didn't have the tickets to enter this place. However, they were still let in at around 1:30 a.m. And you can see them as they exited the cab. It just seems like there were some boys kind of passing by on the street, and they kind of joined them to enter the club. So far the night looks pretty normal. It looks like pretty much any night out that, I don't know, I have been on, in terms of pre-drinking, buying alcohol, deciding what to do, maybe on the spot, maybe they have actually thought about this before. I think it is the former, just because they haven't been let in at least 2 of the locations. One of the friends brought another. What's wrong with that? They have ordered a cab through an app. Everything seemed super safe. So where does it go wrong? Debanhi would come out of Quinta Diamante twice, according to the video footage that I have seen. One of the times that she comes out between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m., it just seems like she's either talking to somebody, you can't really tell it, like if she on her phone or anything, and then it seems like she waves to somebody as if she just recognized them just passing by, and then you see a couple of boys that maybe were the ones that she waved at kind of look back at her. So again, nothing strange there. The second time you will see Debanhi on the CCTV footage between 1:30 and 3:30 would be a completely different situation. You can see her running. However, she's now running from a completely different angle. And this just has never been clarified. Is there another entrance or exit to this place? Is it a fire exit? How did she get out of this place? So you see her running out of this club, and then there's this man that seems to be running after her, reaching her. She kind of does the low kick, she tries to push him away. And then instead of just this man, I don't know, backing out or anything like that, there are other friends that seem to be coming along and just cornering Debanhi, and you can't even see her beyond a certain point. What people would say later, the partygoers, the witnesses, is that actually the man had been trying to help her, to calm her down, because apparently what we don't really see in this footage, because it is from quite a distance, from the location opposite of Quinta Diamante, is that Debanhi was holding a bottle of vodka, so they were trying to get it away from her. Because apparently beyond the point when she started drinking, so around 11:30, and this point after 1:30 in the morning, it seemed like Debanhi got drunk, according to people at the party. According to people in the party, she started insulting everybody inside, she sort of would push them, kick them, and she even tried to jump into the pool. This is according to the witness testimony otherwise. You let me know what you see in the video though, because when I looked at it at first, I was like, this is dodgy. Why are they running after her? I mean, yes, she is running on the sidewalk, but you think that the way to pacify the situation is to have like 10 people surrounding her? I don't know. It just doesn't look good to me, but nobody has been accused of anything based off of this video and based off of the interviews that they have done with people after. We have no CCTV footage from inside of Quinta Diamante. The next piece of information we have through a couple of WhatsApp messages that make it clear that the girls, especially here from what I have read, this would be Yvonne, has actually asked the guy, the previous cab driver called Juan, to come back again. But he is to come back again to pick Debanhi. And as you can see, these screenshots are through WhatsApp. So what had happened here is that the girls, during that ride, the first ride towards Quinta Diamante, sort of just chatted up. This driver took his phone number in order then for him to just override the app. I don't really know why. Did they promise him to pay them more? Was it because they were drinking and they just felt comfortable with this man? We don't know the context, but for some reason they exchanged numbers and now they're messaging this cab rider to pick Debanhi up because the two girls are gonna go to, their own locations, to their own homes. Actually, from what I have read online, Yvonne and Sarai went home in another car because Debanhi said she wanted to go home alone. So another thing that is kind of lost in translation is they sent him obviously the current location, as you can send through WhatsApp, where they are at right now, the Quinta Diamante place. But then some articles say that the girls told him where Debanhi's location was, where her house was. And some state that they didn't know it. And here, if you have a fish brain like your homegirl here and think that this guy picked them up at Debanhi's house, he didn't. If you remember, they went somewhere else, that place didn't let them in for whatever reason, and that's when they ordered a cab. So I think this is of relevance here, because did the girls have Debanhi's house? As you will see in the messages at least, you don't really see them exchange her address, so I find that to be extremely interesting. You will see when Debanhi enters the cab, it seems like the two girls kind of approach like the side window to communicate with him, so maybe they tell him her address, maybe they count the Debanhi wheel inside of the car. I just find it a bit weird, and also this whole exchange is why you should never go offline. You should never just share the number with the cab driver and then sort of kind of try to override the app, because when you do it through the app, there is the destination, there is the location. That person is either going there or somebody can chase them, because again, it will be on the record. Whereas here, we have no idea where Debanhi goes when she enters this car. The next point of contention here comes with what happens inside of this car. You tell me now, just watching this video, pause me speaking over it and tell me, what do you see? A lot of people will comment that they see this driver sort of reach out with his hand towards Debanhi's chest. Debanhi's dad would be one of the people who would be very vocal about something shady happening in that car, about him possibly sexually assaulting his daughter. What I see, and the other people online who kind of disagree with this, is as if like Debanhi is kind of talking. Maybe she's in the passenger seat, which is another thing that is odd. Like, why is she in the passenger seat? Why is she this comfortable to be in this man's car? And it just seems on his end as if he's putting his head into his hands, as if, when somebody rants and they might be drunk, they might be just talking about something and the other person looks stressed. Again, you let me know. It doesn't have to be any of these two. It might be something completely different. I just see it more as the second thing rather than the first. Debanhi's dad would say maybe something happened to his daughter in that car and she just couldn't handle it.
Que mi hija no aguantó el acoso, porque es un acoso. No sé, díganme ustedes qué es. En donde el fiscal dice que no hay delito que perseguir.
However, the prosecution said that there's nothing to prosecute. I have watched some interviews with the lawyer of the cab driver and he was never charged. He was always cooperative from everything that I have seen. So it's just that a lot of people find this whole correspondence really, really odd. Because I have just skipped a couple of things that might not have any relevance, but I still do like to deep dive and again can give you more insight than other videos purely because I can understand this. So things that I have missed out on, right? The girls reach out to Juan at around 3:29, exactly at 3:29 because we have the timestamps. They send him the location and he says he's doing traigo viaje. I think just means he's on another job, so he's basically has somebody in his car. He can be there in about 10 to 15 minutes. And that would match the time that Debanhi would enter the car at around 3:50. The second thing that I didn't mention is that the CCTV footage that you have seen between Debanhi and the driver in the car happened as the car is stationary. So I don't really know where, like, is it still just in front of Quinta Diamante? Are they just parked up and interacting and what they are talking about? Because if I am right about my version, then they must have been talking about something, and I don't think that has also been made public, as in, like, what was his version of events as to what was happening inside of that car. And as you will find out, like, later, and, as I mentioned through this video, he would have lawyered up, so probably the reason why they're not sharing is because of protection, because certain details won't ever be made public. So whatever happened in that car, at some point they made a move and Juan David would drop off Debanhi in the middle of nowhere. This would be a motorway in Mexico where her last picture would be taken. And then there's another picture that seems to be taken from inside of the car. So you see Debanhi still wearing her clothes. It just seems like she has decided to get out of the car and then wait for somebody or something. And you see the correspondence from the communication between Juan and Yvonne, where at about 4:13 he says, "This is where I'm going to leave her," where I picked her up. So I'm kind of confused about that. But he's saying I can't basically bring her this way. I can get into some issues. And this is how you left her. Pass me the number of her mom. And Yvonne says, I don't know her mom's number. In the voice notes that he is going to leave for Yvonne, he is just going to keep repeating that she doesn't want to go. You know, she wanted to get out, she is drunk, she doesn't want to be in the car with him.
Redes sociales. Se bajó, ya no quiso que la llevara y me empezó a manotear. Y pues ya mejor le dije que se bajara, pero nada más te aviso pues para que vengan por ella porque estaba muy agresiva.
And in other sets of voice notes, he would keep saying he didn't want to take her by force in order not to get accused for kidnapping.
Yo no la puedo subir a la fuerza o así, o llevarla hacia la fuerza porque me pueden acusar así de que la estoy secuestrando o algo así. Y ya ves cómo está ahorita el tema ese, entonces pues ya mejor me retiré de ahí.
He asks for the mom's number, and you kind of get a feeling of like, this is all I can do. I mean, I tried, she's clearly completely drunk, she doesn't want to be in the car with me, this is where I'm leaving her, and it crosses nobody's mind. Yvonne's, these drivers, the friends, it crosses nobody's mind to just call the police. Actually, they mention it in one of the messages. She asks, you can ask for a patrol at around 4:30 a.m. And then, 5 minutes later, she says, did you do something? Hizo algo. Then there is a missed call, and again, another message from Yvonne, being like, can you tell us? To which he responds, I don't know, I already left. She stayed where I picked her up. The next part of the communication between Juan and the friend really rubs me the wrong way. So he said he left her there, right? He just left her and then he goes off. However, now there are a couple of messages and voice notes. He is the one leaving the voice notes and then the friend is leaving the messages, where it just seems like everybody's trying to wash their hands clean and suddenly justify this decision, like it was the best thing that they could have ever done. So you see who we believe to be Yvonne saying that she, referring to Debanhi, was unbearable, that she hit them, she beat them. And then what can we do? You can't force her. Obligada no se puede. Now, this is something that exists in Serbian language, just as I am the language nut. Basically, when you try to refer to things in third person, like no se puede, se cayó, something had fallen, somebody just couldn't be obligated. You're trying to distance yourself from the story, and that is what is going on throughout this whole conversation. In his voice notes, Juan would say that she was drunk, like he even asks, like, was she drugged? Was something in her drink? And the friend responds to that saying, no, she just drank vodka, but a lot of it. Nobody gave her anything else. Another thing that rubs me the wrong way here, I don't know really where to mention it, the articles online state that this is Yvonne communicating with this guy, and Yvonne wasn't really Debanhi's friend. She's the one that she met that evening. So why isn't her other friend the one that is communicating with it? There are a lot and a lot of gaps in this story. And the only truth is that every single person here that evening has just failed. Failed Debanhi. There's no other way to explain it. Because where this story goes from now on is that Yvonne says that they're trying to reach out to her mom. And then again, Juan in his voice notes states that he feels responsible in a way, but he couldn't do anything. After which, Yvonne at 5:15 thanks him, says, well, same here, we just don't know what to do. This is where this correspondence dies down between them. I don't know, do the girls just go home and they're completely happy with their friend just being outside without them really having made any effort, having called the police, haven't found out how to call the mom, like they knew where she lived. They knew where she lived. Why not take a cab to her house, which is where this whole event had started? Why not go speak to her dad? Just knock on the door. So many things could have been done here and they just haven't been done. So on the other end, we know where Debanhi was at that point. She was walking on the motorway, on it, as in the cars were swerving to pass her. And this would be now around 4:30 a.m. So as this correspondence is happening, Debanhi is just walking on her own. No jacket, no nothing, just walking aimlessly. The next thing you see is that she has apparently moved on. She's moving towards this area where the motel is, around 4:30 in the morning. And you see her on a different CCTV camera. Some people will say she's running towards the reception, some people will say she's just normally walking, and yet again there's nobody behind her. Here she will pass this circular building that you see on the screen, and this is an abandoned restaurant. So nobody was there, the restaurant is just shut down and it seems like completely emptied. It's only that its CCTV cameras are working. And I'm only gonna play a bit, there is basically like hours of this online, but what the cameras from the inside pick up is just movement on the street. So in the right window to you, what you see is just cars speeding up, moving like crazy. And then in the left mirror, at some point you see a woman who is presumed to be Debanhi stop by. So it seems even like from the hand movement as if she is trying to open the door to the restaurant, but then figures out she can't. And then it seems like she's in front of that door, like in front of that restaurant for 23 minutes. There's no idea, nobody has a single clue as to what she was doing. And also, nobody else is seen on the camera with her. It doesn't seem like anybody has approached her, like anybody has followed her from the CCTV that we have seen so far. So for 23 minutes, it appears she's just standing there and nobody is pestering her. But this is where her trail really ends. Nobody really understands, like, did she go in? Are there any further cameras? Is this where the clue to this whole story is? Because nobody knows what had happened to Debanhi beyond this point. According to the sources, the last time that the cameras will capture Debanhi would be at 4:56, and it seemed like she was going towards the pool area. And this is what we need to speak about now. So when you look at it from like the bird's eye view, it just seems like, okay, a regular wall, and then you can see 3 pits on the ground, 2 of which are open and 1 of which is closed, and then in the left corner it is what seems to be a pool that again doesn't really seem to be used. However, she wouldn't be able to access this area because of that wall. It wasn't open to the public. And the wall was 2.6 meters in height, and it also had a barbed wire on top of it. This is where the information as to what had happened that evening ends, and also where the investigations begin. Because obviously, the next day, her family hones in on the fact that Debanhi had gone missing. At that point, and during the next week, the investigators would use drones, they would use people, searches would be conducted, they would review security cameras looking for Debanhi. And all of them really believed still that there is hope, that she might be found. And if you think about it, even when you review the footage, nobody seems to be following her. It just seems like she is moving on her own accord. And that kind of, again, if made public to the family, just gives them further hope. So what happened during the initial investigation? At first, obviously, they interviewed everybody. The driver, they uncovered that the girls took his number for later, and the driver has been ruled out pretty quickly. As I mentioned, there were interviews with his lawyer, and the lawyer in every single interview says that the driver is fully cooperative. Like, if they need him anytime in the future, if they want to interview him again, he is just going to volunteer. Basically, he's not hiding, he's not leaving the country, he's not really doing anything shady, he doesn't have anything to hide. Then they obviously interviewed some key witnesses, the partygoers, such as Debanhi's 2 quote-unquote friends. This part of the investigation, of course, included the friends stating their part of the story that is then corroborated with the WhatsApp messages that rubbed me the wrong way. Them saying that Debanhi was drunk, she was out of her senses. Sarai was saying that Debanhi was acting crazy and she even attacked them. that some people that they don't know try to take Debanhi from us when she was too drunk. But then they carried her, and when noticed, they let her go. And she then went and hid in the bathroom. This is referring to Quinta del Diamante. After that, she ran away from the party. So, this was the safest option that they could have chosen. And this whole view is further introduced, rather confirmed, by a Vice article that came out during that time. So around this time in the investigation, Debanhi is yet to be found. And the Vice article comes out stating that the authorities made public the video from the party. And this is the security one where, they show her running from one angle and people surrounding her. So Vice journalists have said that this is the strategy that's orchestrated by the government in order to shift the public opinion. If you present somebody to be drunk, if you orchestrate a shame campaign, as they have referred to this as, well then the public is going not to look for her. They're going to think, well, she's just a drunkard. Women go missing because they're drunk. Upon hearing that, you might think that's a tad dramatic, but then, if you are in the true crime world, you know exactly how many times have young people, especially young people, maybe with some previous record of running away, just simply being marked as runaways in the first couple of days of the investigation, and how that has shaped, in turn, the whole investigation. And also, you might think that Vice is bullshitting, that maybe the country just doesn't actually have this kind of view when it comes to young teenage girls who go missing when they're drunk. Maybe they don't see them as less than. But then it took 4 searches in order to find Debanhi. And this is weird because we are going to speak about where her body had been found on 21st of April. Debanhi had gone missing between 8th and 9th of April. This would be 21st of April, when the motel workers would start complaining about the smell of the water in the area. They rang the police started inspecting that area behind the wall that, if you remember, isn't accessible to the public, and this is where, in one of the cisterns, in one of the water tanks, they will find Debanhi's body. It would be the 13th day of the search for Debanhi Escobar when her dad Mario would stand outside of the petrol station in the heat, still with flyers of his missing daughter in his hands. When he would be called to the scene where the police was surrounding this area, his hope just completely shattered forever. The government in Mexico could never explain why these motel workers never noticed the smell. It has already been 13 days, and yet nobody has flagged up anybody up until this point. Also, in that motel area, so far, I have not seen that a single witness has been interviewed, rather compared to everybody else that we know has been interviewed, has been cleared in this story. Then, again, cameras. There's only one camera from that restaurant area showing Debanhi going towards the motel. Where is the rest of the CCTV footage? Because from what I gathered, that abandoned restaurant, yes, was shut, but I haven't seen anything saying that the motel has been shut. Again, let me know if I have been wrong here. And on top of that, they have searched that area 4 times. As I showed you in that picture, if they have actually searched beyond the wall, right? There's a pool, and then there are 3 pits. 2 of them are open, but yet they have somehow missed the opportunity to find Debanhi's body. At first, and nobody mentions this, that's why I'm mentioning it, even though I don't think there's anything to it, I thought in these cases, usually people don't think that somebody might have actually come in the aftermath. And we're going to speak about autopsy now, and the technicians believe that Debanhi died on the night of. So I think that is completely discarded as the option. So even if foul play had been involved, it's not like she was murdered somewhere else and then transported here later after some of the searches. And also there's high risk if that was to happen, which just kind of reinforces this idea of what the hell were they doing? Why were there 4 searches of the area without finding the body when it's literally a pit that's open, it's not even hidden? It just pisses me off, like, to the next level. The very next day, on 22nd of April, the autopsy would be conducted. The medical examiner determined that Debanhi had a blow to the head. They have said it was a contusion to the skull. So she had at least one blow to the head before she was dumped into the water. They know this because there was no water in her lungs. So she must have already been dead before hitting the water in that pit. The initial report, though, would state that the death had been classified as an accident, and that is because she could have technically hit her head upon falling into that pit. But after the autopsy results, authorities started soon enough treating this case as homicide. Not before they actually went along to say that yes, this was an accident because she could have climbed the wall of 2.6 meters with a barbed wire on it, which would have been the only way for her to reach that pit, and then fallen. How? Tell me how, because nobody fucking emphasizes on this. Walk me through it. Physics, I don't know what the science is, walk me through it. I am 1.8 meters tall, 180, right? This wall is 260. Would I be even able to reach the flipping top of it? Most probably not. Even jumping, whatever skills I have. I don't know Debanhi's height. Might have been shorter, might have been taller, for all I know. Walk me through it. How is she doing it? Put people on it to actually, show us the graphs. How is it possible? How is it possible that this woman would have fallen upon jumping off of a 2.6 wall to do what? For what reason? And I have looked into, like, it's a pretty flat wall, right? It's not like it's some bouldering wall where you can even achieve this. It just can't happen. Show me that it can happen, I'll swallow my words up. I'll just be like, cool, but I have not seen it shown yet. We're now gonna go into further detail as to how bizarre this theory is. And yet again, if somebody was to have like a scientific explanation as to what I'm about to tell you, I'd love to hear it. I'd absolutely love to hear it, because I think certain things here can actually be described by like laws of physics, or now by chemistry when it comes to these free pits. However, I haven't seen that done, and that would again in turn exclude certain options that the government has stated to begin with. As I mentioned, behind this wall that you can see in this picture, there are 3 pits. So 2 of them open, 1 of them shut. The open ones are 11.7 meters deep and 9.7 meters deep. Reminder again, over 2.6 meter wall. And we're going to talk about how the items have been spread out. So something I haven't seen completely confirmed, but again, from what I'm going to put on the screen in Spanish, I believe Debanhi's body was found in pit number 1, the one that's the deepest. And I believe that because the articles state that her bag was found in pit number 2. So we are working with the only 2 open pits here. In the pit number 1, where Debanhi's body will be found, they will find 2 of her Converse shoes. Now, one of them was apparently, at least from the graphs that I have seen, in a different spot compared to the other. So it seemed like they have fallen off of her. Then also there will be some fabric. And then you can see the area in between those 2 pits. And in this area in between, they found a bra, a bag, some pieces of silk, and it was as if it was floating between the 2 areas. In one video that I have watched, it was said that these cisterns, the water tanks, obviously had water inside of them. So sometimes it would be to the level where then, the items could overlap. They could float between the 2. So this is where, I have gaps and questions about, I don't know, physics, chemistry, whichever science can explain this. Is it possible? What were the levels of the water? Because it can exclude any foul play, or it can, on the other end, say that no, this is foul play, because why was her body found somewhere else compared to her belongings? Because now in pit number 2, what they will find would be a lighter and also a ring and some sort of keychains, which leads you to think, okay, so the contents of the bag and another bag. When they say tipo monedero, I think they're referring to like a wallet. So I think the bag was floating in what you have seen in number 2, in between those 2 pits. And then in the second pit, they found the wallet. So to me, this looks like it is possible that the items have been flowing due to the water, which again nobody explains to us, but it is possible. And then some of them might have fallen out of the bag and have landed elsewhere, but her Converse haven't. And again, she hasn't moved from the deepest pit, may I add so. I just wish somebody took that into the account as well, because that pit was much deeper compared to the others, and these kind of graphs that I have seen also don't really show that. This leads me to a couple of options. Let us discuss what could have happened once she actually went towards this area. So the first option is she would have had to enter the area that was closed off to everybody, meaning somebody would have needed to see her or let her in. Second option, there was apparently a door where the security guard was. And this is one of those spots where only vehicles can enter it. So the security guard would have probably told her, only vehicle entry here, please go towards the first entrance. Then the third version is that she went somewhere else, so that just hasn't been spotted on camera, and then returned and just decided to jump that wall. When her dad was asked about that sleeping option, jumping the wall and then sleeping and that causing the contusion on her head, he says it's a lie. We have to find the people responsible. But he knows that this is a danger zone and he has no fear to say it because he just has nothing to lose. What was clear here immediately and stated by people in the government, by the security secretary in Mexico, was that there was a massive failure to find Debanhi. It came out to the public that there were 4 searches before they actually found her, 4 searches of that area. And on top of that, also the head of the National Commission for the Search of Disappeared People pointed out to a couple of missteps by the prosecutor's office, including, this case enrages me so much, the failure to inform Debanhi's parents that a body had been discovered. So remember, her dad was at the petrol station holding the flyers, still holding on to hope that his daughter is just missing and will be found somewhere. Well, he heard about her being missing from the news. And that is how then he was alerted. There are police cars in the area. The head of the National Commission for the Search of Disappeared People actually said that they were denied to even see her remains. Rather, they just were given pictures, which is just, I just can't explain. I can't explain how this family has been treated in this case. All of the interviews that I have watched just show these people, especially her dad, to be just salt of the earth. Completely just on it, saying we have nothing to lose, even if it is, I don't know, cartel, even if it is again, like, we have nothing to lose, we are on it, we are searching and like exploring every single possible avenue. And it is because the prosecution office just isn't, and that is the painful part when it comes to these cases, that the families have to fight for their loved ones. It happened in the case that I have researched before. It happens in so many cases because the prosecution just discards it as an accident, because then obviously they have less work to do, and because of the corruption in the country, and because it can be easily explained why an 18-year-old who was drunk would then just decide to go missing, and then, you know, she would accidentally fall because, again, there was alcohol in her system. I will never stop raging about this. Debanhi's funeral happened on the 23rd of April. It would happen in the area of Galeana, where her mother grew up, and the convoy of cars would just pull into the town with dozens of people who would end up even protesting on behalf of Debanhi, just standing by the side of the road, waving different signs and also white balloons. 2 days after Debanhi's funeral, a Vice article popped up. Vice was all over this case for whatever reason, and sometimes really not in the greatest of lights. In this article, they interviewed the head of Mexico's Federal Human Rights Commission, and this man said there was sexual abuse in this case. It's very delicate, and that's why we will request a second autopsy. This hasn't been confirmed yet, and we are now, sort of midway through May. It just hasn't been confirmed. There was another article in El País, again, stating if it is possible they can detect it, because a forensic doctor can detect sexual abuse injuries in the body even if it's submerged in the water for about 10 days, which is something that I only found out during this case. And this is because it's impossible for the tissue to regenerate after death, meaning that it can still be analyzed. So where this case is now, from what I gauged, is that they're still after that second autopsy. I don't think that it happened. I followed this YouTube channel that I'll put on the screen, and basically every single coverage that they have done on Debanhi is there. I have just checked it like an hour ago, so I do have an update for you. Before I go ahead with that update, I was just editing the video and I found an article that was published literally at the moment when I was recording. So the second autopsy had been done and they had found presence of sexual assault. So they have found vaginal sexual assault, violent and recent. And this is because they have found some ecchymosis, villus, and hematomas in the exterior zone of her genitals. This is according to El País and El Mundo, and both of them are reliable newspaper sources. So literally just read this. Sorry about the late update in the video. Where this case is now, the latest that I have are the couple of videos that I have seen on this channel. So there's a video of her dad saying that they will analyze every single part of that night, especially the party, but also some parts in the taxi, between that ride and the time that she ended up on the motorway. And Dad also started speaking up, asking the president to help out, because this case had been yielding so much publicity. Now, literally an hour before sitting down to record this, what is the date? Why don't I ever know the date? 13th. What I have seen on that same channel is that apparently the president had accepted. So the president of Mexico and Debanhi's dad are going to have a talk about what else can be done to really figure out what happened here. So I hope that this isn't just a political move, which partially it always will be in these kind of instances, but that actually something comes out of it, some solution for this family. Because if this case, with as much publicity as Debanhi had gotten, doesn't show up to yield any results and doesn't get solved, what is the hope? What is the hope for so many other cases that don't get zilch of this amount of just publicity online? Now that you have the facts of this case and where it stands now, let us discuss the possible theories. A lot of people do believe that this still could be an accident, that there might not have even been any foul play in this story. And those people believe that mostly because of the CCTV footage that showed nobody following Debanhi, and then no further footage has been received, meaning that this is where her trail had ended. She was walking in the direction of the water tanks, she was walking in that direction, and then somehow, unexplainedly, she just jumped off of that wall and then fell. If somebody were able to explain that to me, I might be inclined to believe it. But so far I haven't found any logical explanation as to how this young woman would have jumped onto that wall and then onto the other side, and that is how she would have flipped into one of those pits. If that is not the way, if the wall isn't how she did it, if she actually then walked through that area of the motel, of the restaurant, towards the pool, well, then there should be some CCTV footage, hopefully, showing that. Or Somebody should be investigated, interviewed to see who was the security guard, did somebody let her in, how did they let her in, why. All of those things need to be just followed up on in order for us to actually consider this as a possible theory. There are limited autopsy results, as you have seen, so it still hasn't been confirmed if the contusion to the head happened before or after the fall to the cistern, and again how many hours maybe before her death, which would have again clarified quite a few things for us. We also still need information whether or not there was sexual assault, and if the contusion to the head happened due to an object, possibly, like some sort of aggressor, or was it due to the fall? Which I think can be confirmed by the autopsy. I really hope it can, because again, it might be the conclusion to this whole case. Now, if you consider foul play, what are the possible theories that you see happening here? Or rather, who is lying or who is hiding some information, if that is the case? So, as I mentioned, there are a couple of people that have been completely discarded here. The dad had publicly accused the rider, the driver of that car, who has since been discarded. And again, his lawyers say that he is fully cooperative. Did the friends have the reason to lie? Did people at the motel? Because one of the big unresolved questions still is the role of the motel. Did they lie about their camera records? Is the prosecutor's office lying? Do they exist? There's just no information about the rest of the cameras, whether the records have been deleted or edited at the time of her death, and also the discovery of the body, because those cameras would be able to confirm whether or not the area was indeed searched 4 times as well on top of that, and then it unravels a wholly different story. And no one here has yet been charged with obstruction of justice. I would also like to add the cameras at the club, Quinta Diamante, should have also been checked. Were there no cameras inside? What kind of place is this? Were there no different angles? Why do we only see one angle? I think those are the 2 key areas that I would like people to seriously look into and interview everybody possible, starting off with the security guards, because they can confirm maybe a completely different story to what the friends, the driver, the people involved so far did. Since the discovery of the body and because of how this investigation was handled, this case had sparked outrage in Mexico. Debanhi was the 20th woman to have found dead by what is suspected to be femicide, killing of women, within a month. And the stats are just going from bad to worse. Killings of women have increased during the recent years in Mexico, rising from 977 cases in 2020 to 1,015 in 2021. And those are just the ones that are classified as femicides. The legal term that is popular in Mexico because it is the country that has a deeply rooted issue with this, with women being killed because of their gender. The human rights groups, the people behind these protests, point out to the broader failure by the state and by just the government and the authorities to carry out proper investigations of missing women or prosecute femicide cases. There's no investigations done, or if there are, they have to be funded by the family. In another case, I spoke about the exact same thing had happened. Literally, the mom had to chase the cartel, the bloody cartel, to find out what had happened to her daughter. What the state prosecutor of Nuevo León has stated is that the main reason for the disappearances of women is because of the lack of communication with their families, because of disputes with them, because of the rebellion of young people. The range of age of most of the women who disappear is from 14 to 25, but it's not due to a crime, but rather to a voluntary situation. And that view is disputed by everybody in this case, by the activists and the human rights groups, who are saying that it has become a depressing pattern that when women disappear, they turn up dead and then we blame it on them. The The president himself, the governmental officials, downplay the murder, downplay femicide in particular, saying that the women shouldn't worry because such cases happen everywhere. As a result, desperate families like the Escobars are forced to take search efforts and investigations into their own hands in order to seek justice for their loved ones. By the end of last month, from April the 25th, hundreds of women marched through downtown of Mexico City and its suburbs in order to protest the death of Debanhi Escobar. The demonstrators were mainly women, carrying signs reading "No to harassment" and "Mexico is a mass grave." And I want to leave this video with the words from Mario Escobar, from Debanhi's dad, saying that it is difficult for him, for his wife, but somehow they're calm, that they are able to find Debanhi, to bury her. They know where to put a flower, where to mourn her, but many people do not have that. And that is the case of Debanhi Escobar, and truly what this kind of issue is all about. What ignoring femicide as the issue, once the stats are there to show it, really is about. Because there are some families that never find their loved ones. There are some families that have to invest the money that they don't have, that have no possibility to even start the searches for the loved ones, that they don't have the publicity that Debanhi had gotten. So I really, really hope that this case yields some results, some changes. I have seen Código Debanhi, like Debanhi code online. Hopefully, some law is passed where something changes in terms of how investigations are conducted, how they're logged. How can you tell me they have searched the area 4 times and there's no records of it, or just they haven't found a body? It's just, this case is so infuriating, and I really hope it changes laws. And if you know anything in terms of like any new information, and also like what can be done from outside of Mexico to kind of really put pressure on the government there and to be like, the world is watching, please let me know in the comments. I'll pin it, open up a discussion about the theories here. I'm passing it on to you. What do you think happened in this case? Infuriating case. But you let me know what you think about it. I am still fuming. I have not smiled once today. I have not smiled in a long time because this case has been heavy. Just heavy, and I hope it brings change. I shall be seeing you with that miniature episode hopefully next week. Otherwise, I'll keep you updated in the community posts. Keep those notifications on, keep sharing, keep liking, keep subscribing. Everything helps. Everything helps, especially to make people aware of this type of story. But now I'm out. Bye guys. Bye.